All right, guys, trigger warning. I'm about to show you something disturbing. Ugh. I warned ya. I can only imagine that Stephen Miller is the result of Igor from Frankenstein and Lord Voldemort having a wild night at a monster mixer that resulted in an unwanted child. So they left the child in a dumpster for a few weeks where it mostly died, but it was found by Joseph Goebbels and Heinrich Himmler, and they revived it with some weird Nazi science and then raised it as their own. It's the only logical way that something that hideous comes into existence. Anyway, I did it, guys. I sacrificed my mental health reading all about Stephen Miller, and now I'm going to sacrifice your mental health telling you about it. As bad as you might think he is, he's not that bad. In fact, incredibly, he is a much worse. There are zero redeeming qualities I could find about this man at any point in his life, which surprisingly only began on August 23rd, 1985 in Santa Monica, California. So despite him looking like he's 4,000 years old and has been kept alive solely by drinking the blood of the innocent, the man is only 40. At least according to the birth certificate he probably forged, because there's no way that man is 40, and as a millennial, I will never, ever accept him as one of us. Anyway, fascist Frankenstein over here, whose entire personality is hating immigrants because they will be the downfall of Western civilization, is the grandchild of Russian Jewish refugees. I mean, I guess he wasn't wrong when he said immigrants would ruin our country, since immigrants spawned Stephen Miller. I know it's a big surprise by looking at him, but this motherfucker's always been a loser. His elementary school teacher said that he didn't have any friends and was always sitting by himself, and if you think that's bad, by the 7th grade, he'd already identified as a conservative. Just think about how fucking lame of a 7th grader you'd have to be in a Santa Monica middle school to be like, I'm a conservative. Anyway, Pee Wee German goose-stepped his way into high school, where by that point, he was just openly hating Mexicans and Muslims and basically everybody, because he really hates himself, but he's too much of a coward to admit it. He reportedly taunted immigrants and openly opposed the school's chapter of the Chicano student movement. He spent a lot of time bitching about Muslims, especially after 9/11. He was also super pissed that the school was providing condoms for kids, likely because he was mad at the idea that kids were having sex, but he would never be one of them. Unless, of course, it was with Larry Elder, because that's the only reason I could assume that he went on that creepy old fucks conservative talk show 69 times specifically as a fucking teenager. I get why Stephen Miller was begging Larry Elder to let him on the show, because he's a fucking loser and he thought that that would be something cool to do. But why would Larry Elder want some teenager everybody hated on his talk show once, let alone 69 times? And now look, I'm not saying that Larry Elder was out here raping children, although judging by the rest of the Republican Party, he probably did. I'm just saying that the only logical reason I can personally think of is maybe Larry Elder was looking for a different type of talking head, and there's just a little bit of quid pro quo going on there. Side note, if you get a blowjob from somebody who looks like a thumb, does that count as a hand job as well? But if you haven't gotten the concept of how much everybody hated Stephen Miller even back then, the school newspaper wrote an article about him mocking him for April Fools. Do you know how much teenagers have to hate you to take the time to sit down and write a whole ass article about you making fun of you? Teenagers hate doing English homework, and they chose out of their own volition to write a prose about how much they hated Stephen Miller. Anyway, Stephen Miller's entire high school career is basically like American History X, except if it was rewritten to be Ernest joins the Klan, and then unfortunately at the end he gets to graduate high school. But there's certainly a possibility he took some shots in the bathroom from Larry Elder, and through that connection he was introduced to David Horowitz. So then when Stephen, with a PH, went to Duke University to study political science, he started writing for David Horowitz's website, just bitching about multiculturalism and shit. At Duke University, he quickly made everybody hate him as much or more than they did in high school, because he went around introducing himself as saying, hey, I'm Stephen from Santa Monica, and I like guns. Like he was a rejected character from The Ringer. They gave him the nickname Guns because of it. Well, at Duke, Stephen bitched about a student group having solidarity with Palestine and created some, Students for Academic Freedom group to oppose it, that him and a few other losers would just, hang around and circle jerk, probably. He also wrote a column in the student newspaper bitching about multiculturalism called Miller Time. Guys, I cannot stress how much of a fucking loser this dude is. He also supposedly dated a Mexican-American girl because he's a hypocrite. That's if she existed at all. She was probably from Canada, because I can't find any evidence that she did actually exist. She's only known by a pseudonym on his Wikipedia page. She dropped out after freshman year, you wouldn't know her. He'd also refer to Muslims and Arabs as terrorists, and he called it radical Islam, like he was one of the first people really embracing that bullshit. And he also spent an uncomfortable amount of time defending dudes accused of rape. He took a lot of his personal time defending these dudes he didn't know and who probably didn't like him because nobody liked him, defending them against rape accusations, on the radio and in writing. Anyway, after college, he worked as press secretary for Michelle Bachmann. Minnesota sorry about her still. Really. Genuinely, we are. It springboarded his Tea Party career, eventually getting him to work for Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions. There he weaseled his way into being his communications director, and he used that position to legitimize his really racist views about immigration. In addition to that, through Horowitz, he got hooked up with Steve Bannon and basically got to tell Breitbart what they were going to write, and he told him to write some pretty heinous shit. He arguably made Breitbart the Nazi propaganda rag it is today. So with all of those credentials, when Hamburglar Hitler hit the campaign trail and he needed his very own Joseph Goebbels, Miller was the man for the job. He became Apricot Adolf's speechwriter, crafting his language, and because Dementia Donnie's far too dumb to come up with any original thoughts, all of his completely insane immigration and racist policies, Stephen Miller personally whispered in his ear. The man is the architect of the Trump administration immigration and anti-civil rights policies. He did such an evil job building a racist narrative morons would fall for that it became a cult, and he was kept on as a senior advisor and director of speechwriting. And every single heinous immigration act this administration has done is directly because of him. Separating families, his plan. Axing DACA, his plan. Dropping refugee acceptance from 110,000 down to 30,000, him again. And then when Cheddar Cheese Charles Manson lost the election, he was instrumental in all of that overturning the election bullshit. And when he was investigated for it, Attila the Dumb used executive privilege to not turn over documents that proved his guilt in the whole thing. He was also in that interim time doing a bunch of shit in Texas that was like anti-immigration. The dude's done so much evil stuff. Just out here being the Republicans' white power ranger, you know? Now he's the deputy chief of staff and the Homeland Security advisor. And all of the fun fascism and Nazi stuff we need to deal with now is him. The ICE raids, the concentration camps. He was in charge of federalizing the National Guard in DC. He's the one out here leading the whole blowing up random boats in international waters in the Gulf of Mexico. And just to show you how awful he is, Jesse Waters apparently has some weird crush on him because he said to his wife, yes, Stephen Miller's married now, I'm assuming it happened at gunpoint, and he said to her that she must be the envy of all women. Ugh. And she said he's a sexual matador, and I don't know what that means, but no person has ever said that willingly about a sexual partner they enjoy being in a relationship with. The man is a genuine sociopath, a mass murderer, a raging white supremacist, one of the most vile human beings to ever disgrace the face of this earth. If we ever get our Nuremberg trials, he will be front and center. And no matter how much you think you hate Stephen Miller and that creepy fucking face of his, it's not enough. You can hate him more, and you should. The dude needs to go to prison forever. He's white-collar Jeffrey Dahmer at this point. He is just completely despicable, and I cannot wait to see him gone. Anyway, before you go to sleep tonight, check under your bed and in your closet and, you know, like behind the curtains, because Stephen Miller's probably there. That man is definitely a horror movie creature that is hiding in shadows.